I'm Ed O'Keefe, CBS News in Washington. Welcome to America Decides. They say the U.S. Senate is the greatest deliberative body in the world, and they refer to the House of Representatives as the People's House. But after today, we might just need to start calling Capitol Hill Fight Club.
Congress's gridlock nearly turned into a headlock.
If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Oklahoma Republican Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, a former mixed martial arts fighter, challenged Teamsters President Sean O'Brien, who'd been blasting Mullen on social media as a clown and a fraud.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on. Oh, stop it.
Vermont's Bernie Sanders had to step in.
Sit down. Sit down. Okay. You know, you're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Actively.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
Or was it necessary to do something so provocative at that hearing?
I don't know what provocative is. I mean, he's the one that said stand up.
Tempers flared across the Capitol in the House as well, with accusations of a physical attack by one member on another.
It was in this basement hallway where Tennessee Republican Tim Burchett, who helped vote to out Kevin McCarthy as Speaker last month, says McCarthy elbowed him in the back. Burchett was doing a radio interview here at the time, and the microphone picked up some of the audio.
Why'd you elbow me in the back, Kevin? Hey, Kevin, you got any guts?
Jerk.
Burchett then ran after McCarthy.
What kind of chicken move is that? You're pathetic, man. You are so pathetic. What a jerk. You need security, Kevin.
McCarthy said it was an accidental bump in a crowded hall.
I'm not hitting somebody. If I hit somebody, they would know I hit them.
So you're quite confident this was deliberate?
Oh, yeah. Come on. I'll take a polygraph test.
CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us now. So, Scott, what are House lawmakers doing to try and avoid a government shutdown?
A pretty overwhelming bipartisan vote to pass this short-term spending deal to avert a government shutdown over the holidays. But really, it sets up a battle royale come January and February. Here's the bottom line. This spending deal approved tonight would fund 1/3 of the government, including health and transportation programs through January, and the other 2/3 of the government, including the Pentagon, through February. But the political chemistry of this Congress hasn't changed one bit. There's still a group of Republicans who do not want deals that make concessions to Democrats. And Democrats will still have control of the Senate come 2024 in January and February. So the prospect of a protracted shutdown remains. What's more, you have a number of Republicans who want the new Speaker, Mike Johnson, to toe a harder line in this next standoff, the next shutdown deadline that comes right after the new year.
Scott MacFarlane on Capitol Hill. Thank you. Now, President Biden is in California, preparing to sit down Wednesday with Chinese President Xi Jinping. It's a high-stakes meeting that the entire world will be watching closely, given the political, economic, and military consequences. Before leaving Washington today, the president was asked how he would define success for the meeting.
To get back on a normal course of corresponding, being able to pick up the phone and talk to one another if there's a crisis, being able to make sure our military still have contact with one another. We can't take, as I told you, we're not trying to decouple from China, but what we're trying to do is change the relationship for the better.
CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang joins us now from the roof of CBS News San Francisco there in the Bay Area. Weijia, give us a preview of what we are expecting will transpire in this meeting tomorrow between the two leaders.
Well, Ed, in many ways, the fact that they are meeting face-to-face is a success on its own for the administration, because for several months now, the relationship has been quite rocky. In fact, the president was talking about reestablishing communications. Why is that? Because in February, China went dark after the U.S. shot down a spy balloon off the coast of South Carolina. And the defense secretary picked up the phone. It was a special line used with China for times of crisis, and couldn't get anyone on the line. That's exactly why the president said we have to get back to a place where we can talk on the phone, where, we can normalize relations. And so, I'm not expecting a ton of huge actions that the president will announce, but Ed, this is a very critical face-to-face meeting and try to get things back on track, because this relationship has grown so tense.
And it's happening on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Conference, which invites in dozens of countries that either sit along the Pacific Rim or in Asia, big economic conference. But in the midst of all that, the president is still monitoring the fate of those roughly 240 hostages being held by Hamas, and there are U.S. officials deeply engaged in the negotiations. What is the status of those talks?
Well, right before leaving for San Francisco, the president talked about this, and he said even though he can't get into details about what's happening behind the scenes, he talks to people every single day about the plan to get those hostages home. And his message to them was hang in there because we are coming. We also know that the administration's top advisor on the Middle East with the National Security Council is in the region. He is going to be meeting with Israeli officials as well as those in Qatar to try to hammer out a final deal to get some of those hostages home, Ed. But you're right. Not only is that the backdrop, but so is the conflict in Ukraine. And so this is a very high stakes meeting for the president, especially as he gets mounting pressure from the international community to do more to support a ceasefire in Israel, which, of course, he has said he will not do right now. Ed.
Senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang monitoring it all from San Francisco as the president spends a few days out there. Thank you so much. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, who made headlines last week after announcing he won't seek re-election, is now weighing in on the 2024 presidential election. Here's some of his exchange earlier today with CBS Evening News anchor and managing editor Norah O'Donnell.
If it comes down to it, will you vote for Trump or Biden?
I think that's it's a hypothetical question, thinking not knowing what we're going to have and who we're going to have. To make a choice right now, okay, let me just say I could not vote for Donald Trump.
But you're not convinced you could vote for Joe Biden?
Well, I want President Biden. I would hope the changes would come. I would hope for that.
Are you considering leaving the Democratic Party?
I'm not sure if the Democratic Party thinks I'm part of them anyway.
The Supreme Court has issued a decision nobody was expecting. We'll discuss what it means for the 9 justices and the future of the High Court. Stay with us. You're streaming America Decides. Welcome back to America Decides. On Monday, the Supreme Court stunned Washington by announcing it's adopting a new code of conduct. The move comes amid growing criticism following several press reports that some justices were accepting gifts and luxury trips from wealthy, politically aligned individuals. That led critics to allege at least some of the justices could be bought off for favorable decisions. CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford joins us now, someone who tracks the High Court quite closely. This did surprise Washington a bit, but we knew it had been in the works to some extent. What is in this? What isn't in this?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of one of these things where it was surprising that it came out on Monday. Yeah, you know, but it's been in the works for years and years. I mean, the justices have taught for years, long before any of these media reports, recent media reports, particularly about Justice Thomas, were ever in the works. But it took some time to kind of come together on what the court was going to do. You've got to get buy-in from all 9 justices. Some of them have different views on things. But this is what they came up with. And I think what's really most notable about it is that it very closely tracks what they followed as federal appeals court judges. It's almost verbatim in parts to what all lower federal court judges, the code of conduct and ethical guidelines and rules that they have to follow. The court said in a statement, again signed onto by all 9 justices, that they've kind of always followed that informal code and kind of tracked they do. But this was just making it official because they thought that was important because there had been a misunderstanding, as they put it, that the justices weren't bound by any ethical rules. And they say, but of course they always were. So here you go. You wanted a code of conduct, official one from the Supreme Court. And that's what they've delivered. And
it essentially lays out when you can recuse yourself from a case, although it urges you not to do that, right?
Right, and that's there's some differences to what the lower court judges have to follow. There are more specific guidelines, as you point out, on recusal. There's some distinctions there because that goes to the unique nature of the Supreme Court. If one justice has to recuse from a case, that leaves 8. And what's the problem there, right? You can get a 4-4 tie.
Right.
So there's, maybe more incentive for Supreme Court justices not to recuse in cases unless it's a clear and obvious conflict. There's other specific guidelines, for example, about outside speaking engagements. Again, pointing out the unique nature of a Supreme Court justice. We want them to go out and talk about the rule of law and have civic engagement, like, for example, Justice Breyer did so well before he retired. So yes, I mean, you see some distinctions, but again, that's all because of the unique nature of the court. That's also one of the big differences in enforcement. And that's where the sticking point is on this code of conduct.
Speaking of which, there are congressional Democrats who have been pushing this issue who say it doesn't go far enough. For example, here's Dick Durbin of Illinois shortly after the code was announced.
The court's code of conduct sets forth several important canons of conduct, including canons on upholding the integrity and independence of the judiciary and avoiding impropriety and the appearance of impropriety. All of these are important steps, but they fall short of what we could and should expect when a Supreme Court issues a code of conduct.
The buzzwords have been there's no enforcement mechanism, no one to police the nine. Do they have a point, or is it such that you're so supreme as the Supreme Court that you have the right to police yourselves?
Well, that's what the Supreme Court has long argued. And obviously, this has become quite a political issue. You know, there are a lot of Democrats who don't really like the direction of the Supreme Court. And so some of this is attacking the court's legitimacy, undermining some of the decisions that they've handed down. They just don't like them. That's what, you know, conservatives would say. As far as the enforcement goes, though, again, we were talking earlier about the unique nature of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the only court that is created by the Constitution. Right? I mean, it's in the Constitution. The other federal courts, of course, created separately. But the federal court, the Supreme Court is created by the Constitution, and the Constitution provides a specific enforcement mechanism when justices have misconduct, and that is impeachment. So the argument would be that that's the enforcement mechanism. It's impeachment. Yeah. And Congress has no role in adopting a code of conduct, trying to hold the justices accountable, outside committees, because you have significant separation of powers concerns. Congress doesn't have any jurisdiction over the Supreme Court.
We know that Chief Justice John Roberts, throughout his tenure, has been concerned about public perceptions of the court and making sure the American public generally understand what it is they try to do. Do we have any sense now that he might try go shopping this around and explaining it to people, or does he hope that Congress and the public just sort of see it and say, that's how it's going to be?
The Chief Justice is someone who is very strategic, and when he makes statements, he does it at judicial conferences or at universities, at law schools. You know, and he may make a comment on he's very satisfied with this. I could see him doing that. But, you know, I could see him letting this speak for itself as well. And I think that they feel very strongly about our point we're talking about with the enforcement mechanism. The chief has suggested that and hinted that. And, you know, the other justices have wanted this. I mean, we saw all summer, I was at a judicial conference in Cleveland, which, by the way, is a fabulous city, where we saw the justice talking about, you know, they thought this was going to be happening soon. Other justices speaking at conferences and law schools saying there was a need for this. So this is something that they all thought was important. And, you know, they're proud of it. I mean, they think this is a good effort, a sincere effort to do something that they believe was important to kind of further that public confidence in the courts and in the Supreme Court specifically.
And real quick, is there a case coming on the docket that would serve as a test of this code of conduct? Because there may be something before one of the 9 justices. Okay.
I mean, you can argue no. I mean, this tracks what they've been doing. There's nothing in this that is going to get them in trouble for some of the other allegations about Justice Thomas or Justice Sotomayor or Justice Alito. I think this is very forward-looking. And that's been a problem, I think, when you talk about some of the, quote, alleged misconduct by some of the justices. That was a long time ago. The rules have changed in the wake of some of that. And so those rules don't apply to behavior retroactively.
All right. CBS News chief legal correspondent and fan of Cleveland, Jan Crawford, thank you for stopping by. Coming up, we speak with one of the Democrats trying to unseat indicted New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez. You're streaming America Decides.
What went through your mind when you heard about sort of the most recent indictment upon Senator Menendez?
Well, not just Menendez. How many people from New Jersey get in trouble? We're known for...
But I wasn't like surprised by it at all because I feel like there's a lot of corruption in
New Jersey
in politics.
Welcome back to America Decides. That was some of New Jersey Democratic Congressman Andy Kim's first Senate campaign ad, one of the most creative launch videos we've seen. It comes as Senator Bob Menendez has remained defiant since being indicted on allegations of conspiring to act as an unregistered foreign agent. Congressman Kim sat down with CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian earlier today.
Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. You know, I know when you launched your campaign, you talked a lot about broken politics. What is broken politics to you, and how do you think you can fix it if you're elected as New Jersey's next senator?
Yeah, I mean, broken politics is what a lot of people feel right now when they look at what's happening. Right now, we live in the time of the greatest amount of distrust in government in modern American history. In my state of New Jersey, 84% of New Jerseyans believe that their politicians are corrupt. And I just think that that's indicative of just, people don't think that government and politicians are focused on the issues that they care about. They think that people are just in it for their own personal ambitions. So what I'm trying to do is try to restore that trust, and by doing so, trying to restore a sense of integrity in our politics. I'm somebody who's been a public servant my whole career. I'm somebody that's fighting against the corruption here in Congress, pushing forward legislation to be able to do so. And I hope people see in me someone who is trying to be for the people.
I know you just launched your Senate campaign last week, but you technically announced a couple of weeks ago, not long after Senator Bob Menendez was charged. Did you jump the gun there? I mean, he has said that he's innocent.
No, look, I think what's important right now is that the people of New Jersey have a choice. And they're going to have a choice next June in the primary and the choice next November in the general election. And that's what I wanted to provide. And I think that it's really important that people feel that they are the ones that are in the driver's seat of their democracy. And again, I think that that's something that they get worried about. There are just so many concerns that just politics is so out of touch, that decisions are made in backroom deals and things like that. That's what people are tired of. And I've heard it as I've gone all across the state. People were excited that I took a strong and bold decision to jump in and be able to make sure that people have the kind of choice and democracy that they so badly deserve.
I mean, prior to his legal troubles and you announcing, how would you characterize your relationship with the senator?
Well, look, I work with the New Jersey delegation in both chambers, and we've worked on legislation. I don't particularly know the senator very well, but we've had opportunities to be able to work on different issues together. And look, I'm somebody that'll work with anybody in Congress if we're able to get things done, be able to serve the people. But what we need to make sure is that, again, that the people that are coming to government, coming into politics, are there for the right reasons. What I'll just say is I had a boss that once told me when I worked at the State Department in national security, he said, you don't have good government unless you have good people working in government. And I truly believe that. We just need to make sure that we have people that are here for the right reasons, people of integrity.
Did you ever reach out and give him a heads up?
No, I did not. I think the moment was when I called for him to step down, he released an immediate response saying that he's not going anywhere. He said, I am not going anywhere. So I just felt like, I needed to have a strong and immediate response back saying, well, then we give the people of New Jersey a choice.
As you mentioned, you have called on the senator to step down. You've called for him to be expelled from the Senate. You are someone who has worked in the national security space. So when you go through that superseding indictment, particularly this latest charge that alleges the senator acted as a foreign agent, what troubles you most?
Well, what troubles me most is this question. I mean, with national security, it's the last place that partisan politics belongs. It's a place where we have to have the utmost care. And as someone who worked in national security before, worked in embassies abroad, the hope is that our leaders back in Washington will have our backs. And so when there are allegations that the senator may have provided personal information about different U.S. government employees at the embassy or potentially other types of dealings, that is of the highest of concern to me. And that's something that I think merits the strongest kind of response because of just the breach of confidence there. We work jobs whose job descriptions are in the Constitution of the United States. It demands the highest of standards, the highest possible standards.
In terms of your candidacy, you're not the only person interested in this seat. As I'm sure you well know, there is talk that Governor Phil Murphy's wife, Tammy, may get in. Do you see her as a competitive challenger?
Well, I think anyone is allowed to participate in our democracy. That is the rights afforded to us. And I think, again, my main issue, as someone who's been battle tested. I've won 3 of the toughest races in recent New Jersey history, including as a Democrat winning a district that Trump won twice. So I know how to win. And how I win is by getting my message out there. And so I don't know how she or others are going to do. She's never run for office before, so we'll have to see how the voters respond.
All right, Congressman Andy Kim, Senate candidate for the state of New Jersey, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Good conversation. That does it for today. Thank you for watching. You're streaming CBS News.